Welcome to the Research Workshop. I'm Rousseau, and today we're going to tackle a touchy topic, and that is tiles. And this is all pretty informal, but I like naming stuff, so I had to come up with a name for what I'm talking about, and that is what you saw in the title, TIMEtiles. And the time is all in caps because it stands for something. Doesn't have to, but it does. Tessellated, interlocking, modular environment tiles. So, TIMEtiles, just based on those four vaguely related words, but also because you know me, it is going to take some time to put these together, and when they're put together, who knows, it might save a little time. So I got a couple of squares here, right? 1 inch square, 1 1/4 inch square, and both kinds of squares are 1/8 of an inch thick. Each of these tiles also has a 1/4 inch square hole in the center and sort of half octagon divots in each side. And what might those be for? This is component 1. Component 2 then would be connectors. And these are just a few. You got an octagon with a spacer and a double length spacer. Then you've got your corners and your three-way pieces. And I'm sure you can imagine how various other connectors might come in handy in different situations. So eventually we will get to that. But for now we got two things. What's our third thing? Well, things seem pretty bare as it is. So I'm sure you guessed that textures are what we're looking at. And this is where my real interest here lies. The surface of each of these is 1/16 of an inch, and there's a little peg on the back here. I just roll up a piece of paper, but it'll do fine for now, to affix the texture to the base tile. So why the 1 1/4 tile and the 1 inch tile? And the answer there is to maintain an underlying 1 1/4 grid. Walls can go on the tiles, but the walls need a way to go on the tiles, so this is what makes that possible. You use the spacers, you use the corner pieces, and you can come up with various configurations where you can imagine 1 1/4 tiles intersecting, but they don't have to intersect. So if we take what we got there and attach it to this other little bit, I think you'll start to see the sorts of things that could be done with this. Of course, that is where the time element is going to come in, and it's all sort of a cyclical thing where you need tiles to build a thing, but you also need tiles to know what sort of things you can build. So this is sort of an introduction to this system, this sort of way of thinking about tiles. So the future videos on this topic will likely focus on the interlocking element more than, say, what kind of textures are put on the tiles, or the exact steps or measurements you would have to take. It'll be less gray bricks or red bricks, and more symmetrical bricks and asymmetrical bricks. Pieces that can be rotated around and still match, like the floors, versus more complicated things like the walls. So I don't want this to be too lean, and these floors really aren't very complicated. Really, I don't see any problem with doing an entire layout, or at least a big room, just with those floor tiles, because there is quite a bit that can be done with just a square grid. Anyway, I feel like I'm rambling. We'll go to the animation. This is about where we were, so just to give you a clearer view of that, we can put more floor tiles down, and we can fill in those walls, and that I think is looking pretty good. But what we were going to talk about, the floor tiles. So here there are 3, count them, 3 different floor texture pieces. 1, the full 1 1/4. 2, the full 1 1/4 with 1/8 of an inch cut off of one side. And 3, the 1 1/4 with that 1/8 of an inch cut off of two sides in an inside corner fashion. And yeah, you could imagine having a couple more, or maybe 3 more, but I've just decided not to have passageways that narrow. But still an option. Now, there are other things that you can do just with a paint job, so gray bricks or red bricks. Here's some red bricks, and that would be to take those black and white bricks and just give them a wash. Likewise, I had the idea to recreate my cutting mat from earlier in these floor tiles. Granted, this is an 1 1/4 grid, and what I really need is a 1 inch grid. So how many different paint jobs do you think I would have to do? And the answer is 6, and here they come. 1 darker square in the corner, 1 line of darker squares, what we've been calling an inside corner of darker squares. Then you got a 3 by 3 block of dark squares in the corner, 3 dark lines on one side, and what I guess you call a 3 wide inside corner, or it is a 2 by 2 block of the lighter color. So our guy's a little slow, but he's tiny, and those pieces need time to get back in place. So there it is coming into view, a recreation of the pattern on that cutting mat using just these standard floor tiles. But yeah, that's a pretty standard floor, and I guess the brick walls will be the next thing to talk about. Maybe not just walls. I don't know, we'll have to see. So until next time, this has been the Research Workshop on Rousseau Works, and I have been Rousseau.